Hi y'all, it's Trader. Welcome to another Book and Beat, the series on my channel in which we talk about books while I do my makeup. Today we're going to be talking about Tusk Love, Critical Role's gag bit from one of their episodes. I also have cats around, so we'll see how it goes. The last time I did it with cats, it was interesting. Say hello to Binks, everybody. He's going to stand fully in the way of the camera because he can. Because he owns this house. Not me. He does. Get your tail out of the way. In full transparency, it's been roughly 22 days since I've read this book. So I do actively have the wiki pulled up so that I can remember all of the plot points. So if I look over here, it's because my computer screen is just barely off screen. I will say I usually do intend to do these a lot closer to when I finish the book. Obviously, that has not been happening recently. So, and by the time you see it, this video is going to come out significantly later from when I am filming it. What are we doing? So, let's begin. First things first, a couple of trigger warnings. This book has your standard fantasy violence and gore, as well as crappy parents. Don't think that there's any self-harm or suicide ideations. Not in this one. But general gore and violence, crappy parents, manipulation, isolation, all of those very, very fun things that we get with princess books, essentially. Our two main characters are Oscar, who is a half-orc, and spelled Oskar, and Guinevere, spelled as you would think it was. And she is a human merchant's daughter. Spoiler alert, she is a fire demon tied to her soul. And I am now looking Tianida? I don't know. Fire spirit tied to her soul. Has been since she was a child. Our book starts off with her in a wagon with a bunch of merchandise that she is taking with her to the far coasts. The name is mentioned so many times, but in all honesty, whenever I read fantasy books, I gloss over names. Nicodranas? Yeah, Nicodranas. Which is a coastal town where she is going to be with her parents. They're currently over there trying to get the last bits of wealth that they could from their last venture that ended up literally sinking. The boats all went down. So, she is making her way over there with all of these goods that she plans on, that her parents plan on selling by the time that she gets there. She has 3 guards. We don't know the guards' names. I mentioned that we don't know the guards' names because it is a sticking point for Guinevere that she just didn't pay attention to these people's names, mainly because they die. They all get killed. There's a swarm of bandits that come to, like, rob and pillage and murder. So these guys get killed trying to keep her safe. It is a large orc man, a couple other dudes, and they essentially are just trying to steal and kill. And they almost succeed in killing Guinevere. However, she's terrified. She's very, very fearful. And when she's very, very fearful, you want to know who shows up to answer them? We're going to keep saying that. Maybe. Her spirit that is tied to her soul. Her Tiandredan refers to them as sisters. So I'm going to call her sister from now on, because I think it'll make it easier for my life and yours. So you don't have to hear my really, really bad pronunciation, because I read these, I don't listen to them. So, But, of course, this causes a massive wildfire to break out. So, Guinevere frees the 2 oxens. That, side note, her parents consider more as their children than Guinevere. Horrible things. And then we finally meet our male lead, Oscar, who comes in and saves the day. However, Guinevere decides to risk her life to save a pear tree chest. We don't know what's in this chest for a majority of the thing, but she knows that she has to bring this chest. This is the chest that must go with her everywhere. It has been sitting in her room since she was a child. That is the chest that holds her dowry. So, we meet Oscar, who is kind of unimpressed by her initially, to be totally honest. He very much believes that she is, like, snoity-toity or hoity-toity, snotty, kind of, like, very prissy princess. And the thing is, she is and she isn't at the same time. She does have a very complex relationship with, like, manners and etiquette and, like, behaving properly. However, she isn't, like, particularly, like, you're beneath me type of situation. But the 2 of them don't get off to a great start because she insists on saving this chest and nearly getting them both killed by doing so. But, you know, she has to. So she does. And the 2 of them have to spend a night in a cave, which she thinks is sacrilege. A woman in her nightingale spending the night with a man? She's got a lot of internalized issues about purity culture, to be frank. But she explains her situation and that she needs to get to Nicodran's. But frankly, she just needs him to take her to the nearest town so that she can pay for new guards with the very, very little bartering tools that she has, and that she's not keen to give up because she knows that her father is going to be royally pissed. Regardless, they head to... I scrolled down way too far. What the Anyways, so they move southward down the Ember Road to Druvenlode, which is a settlement as well as where Oscar's home is. It is a mining town. There's a lot of really seedy people, but they essentially try to go to an inn. They don't have any coin, so that they just end up going to Oscar's home. And that's where they stay. We get introduced to Oscar's mother. Parental death. That was another trigger warning that I meant to mention. His mother's dead. And it's very sad, and we see him grieve, and Guinevere, like, tries to help him through it, essentially. Like, they're both very sweet to each other. But essentially, he informs her, yeah, she is dead. I think it's this chapter that they end up falling asleep in each other's arms, but I could be wrong. Because once again, it's been almost a month since I read this book. So we end up getting them having a nice little night. She wakes up early in the morning and goes to... She heads out to try and find, like, the market. Meets these 2 incredibly shady dudes who happen to be gang members. One of them just stabbed the other one upon meeting Guinevere. And she just kind of goes, oh, you're injured. She's very, 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 very naive, but it doesn't feel overplayed like a lot of super naive characters are. And more importantly, there is growth, and we see her become less naive as the story goes on. Still, like, optimistic, but just less naive. So these 2 gang members end up taking her around. the city, essentially. Not the city, but like the market stalls a little bit closer to the seedier parts, where she does end up getting better deals, having to barter for a lot less of her stuff. I did not put on enough. So it ends up working out pretty good. Thing is, Oscar rolls up and is like, "You are hanging out with genuine serial killers. What are you thinking?" And it turns into a bit of a spat with them, because she's like, "No, these two have been perfect gentlemen, and they've been great." And Oscar kind of scares them off, and they continue to go around. And at this point, Oscar's like, "I can't leave her alone. She's gonna get herself killed." So he decides to offer his services to be her bodyguard / guide through the Ember Road, which is what they are following towards the coast. So they end up spending a lot of time together, if you catch my drift. Which you should, because this is a romance book. So they start heading off onto the road, heading out. They buy a couple of horses. This is when Guinevere reveals that she is carrying her dowry and that she's going to get married. And Oscar's like, "Oh, whoops." Because he really likes her. She's really sweet. She's a little naive, but she's nice. So, little bit of internal tension with him, but she hasn't started to fall for him too much yet. As they're going along their way, they do end up getting attacked by mercenaries, because this is a fantasy book, regardless of it being a romance. And they essentially try to take both Guinevere and the chest, is what information they are able to glean from dealing with them, is that both her and the chest are important. Oscar is able to pretty much fight them off almost single-handedly. The horses help too. The horses' name are like Pudge and like Vengeance, something along those lines. I really hope that it's written down. I don't think it is. I really liked the horses though. Yeah, but it's like Pudge and Vengeance, something along those lines. And it's like this like war horse black stallion, and it's very pudgy, like pack mule-esque type of mare. So those are the horses that they're riding on and dealing with. Vengeance is the one who obviously like bites the crap out of this little wizard man. And the entire thing results, I don't think anybody dies in this particular encounter. No, people do. I think it's the dragon. One of the folks die in this. So they're like, "Oh, we're being hunted." So they get off of the road and go through the forest, where we end up meeting this tree hugger, is what Oscar calls him. He happens to be like an actual like shaman type of situation. I think he's a fawn man. I think he is. Pretty sure. Probably. But he does like teach her essentially a couple of like tips and tricks on how to use her magic. Once again, she has not told Oscar that she has magic at this point. Oscar knows though. He just does. We find out later that he did see her conjure the wildfire, essentially. But yeah, that's how it is. After the attack is when we start getting, like, actual romance happening. Like, Oscar kisses her, close to here. They start getting a little touchy-feely, but then they encounter a troll. During this troll, there we go, Warden of the Forest. Alaris? Alaris. Anyways, they meet the Warden of the Forest, who is Alaris. He's a tree hugger. And that's when we do that thing. They get into a smaller settlement. Unfortunately, the inn only has one bed, because, you know, that's just how it goes. Guinevere also discovers that she really likes ale. We'd find out later that she really hates champagne. Ale is good. So Oscar ends up sleeping on the floor because she is very drunk. And then they continue on, and the next day they do some skinny dipping. This is when we actually start getting smut. For how weirdly cozy this book is, there is so much smut. There's so much of it. There's so much spice. I was not expecting this book to be as spicy as it is. I was not upset. It's just like a statement type of situation. I personally was not upset. But if you do read this book and you don't like spice, don't read this book. So that ends up happening. They get to the next largest settlement, and Oscar ends up spotting one of the mercenaries while they are staying at an inn, which once again only has one bed. He speaks with this mercenary who informs him, hey, you can get on this deal, you just have to let us take the girl in the trunk. That's all we really want. Of course, he declines, but Guinevere sees all of this from up in the window, so she assumes things that are incorrect because the mercenary is a woman, and she's like, oh, it's a siren. You know what a siren is. This woman is not physically a siren, but you know what a siren is. Which, side note, I think is the same thing that they call them in Dragonfall. So, anyways, she begins to, like, write this farewell letter. He catches her as she is trying to leave and reads it all, and he's just like, nope, and they do it in the room. They head off in the morning again. Guinevere trades the last of her possessions to get Oscar new swords because in the first mercenary fight, he had lost them. So she's like, we need you to have these, and they're nice swords. They head back onto the road. They meet this caravan essentially of like goblins and other folk. And it's so cute. It's a really cute portion of the story where they are essentially like with this family of goblins. One of them is like a bard and is like singing mildly raunchy things about Guinevere, but she doesn't seem to care all that much. And then there's like these, it's just cute and fluffy. This is when they say that they're like fiancés or engaged essentially, and that's why they're going to the coast, is to go get married, because, you know, class and politics and other things would not allow this high-born woman to decide to copulate with this lowly half-orc man. And of course, this is when Guinevere and Oscar both are like, that would actually be really nice if that was the truth. Both of them are kind of starting to have temptations to be like, yeah, why don't we just do that? That would be nice. I would enjoy that. That, of course, doesn't happen. Because, you know, what would the rest of the plot be? Happiness? Chill, kind happiness while they go and adventure, because that's all Guinevere has ever really wanted is adventure? No, there's still quite a bit in the book. So, as they are hanging out with these goblins, they go off to do dishes. They go do the dishes. As they're coming back, they get trapped into an illusion. You want to know who had illusionary magic? The wizard that was with the mercenaries. The mercenaries are back. So we end up having to deal with our band of mercenaries again. They don't all get killed. 2 of them are still alive, but most of them have been offed at this point, because as they're fighting, the goblins break through the enchantment and help out and fight them, and this is when both Oscar and Guinevere are like, we would love to stay with you, but we cannot put you in harm's way. That's just not a thing that we can do in good conscience. So, the matron of this group gives them like this talisman that's like, hey, This will essentially inform you of evil within 30 feet of you, which, spoiler alert, does not get used nearly as much as I wish it did. I wish it was a more, prevalent tool that got used, which is, a little frustrating when they give you a cool tool, and then the characters just don't decide to use it to its full abilities. Sorry, I know I have to keep my face in frame, but blendy, blendy, blend. But now that they have left the goblin camp, they're moving at their own pace again. They end up, essentially, there's this large, ravine type situation that they have to deal with. This is, a common pathway that most people go through. So they head through there. Guinevere decides to keep learning about her fire spirit. It's very, very obviously that they really, really love each other. But Guinevere, the whole thing with Guinevere is about, I have to uphold my duty. And Oscar's sitting here, she's like, I am a lowly peasant boy. She will never actually love me. I cannot provide for her the life that she wants, despite the fact that Guinevere wants nothing to do with high politics. She wants to go run around barefoot in fields, essentially. But on this pathway, more spice, with a bunch of, it's dark, and they're doing it quietly, but there's still a bunch of people around, and I'm like, why? I know this is the last time that you'll do it, but why? Anyways, they get to the manor. Lord Fendleton, Fiddleberg, Flitzberg, Wensleydale. Sorry, I don't like him. But he presents himself to be a perfect gentleman. When they get to the manor, her parents are also there and completely ripping into her because she doesn't have any of the trade except for her dowry, essentially. And they're just really mean. We find out that her father won the chess in a game of cards, so he says. A large ball is being held that night for Guinevere, so that, make her debut as this man's betrothed. Because he's a lord. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he's a lord, which is the main reason why she's getting married to him, so that her family will have status again. Because they're lowly merchants, and will always be lowly merchants. I don't know why people think that they can, doesn't matter. But they go ahead and do this. Guinevere runs off at some point because she doesn't see Oscar. Oscar saw her one last time in a really, really, really pretty dress and went, yeah, she needs to be here, and started heading towards the stables to go and leave. But she rushes off because she realizes, I can't do this. I don't want to drink champagne. I want to drink ale. I don't want to be stuck in a palace my entire life. I want to go be on the road. All of these things. So she decides to say, screw it. Screw my family. Screw all this. They haven't done anything for me ever. I'm gonna go with Oscar, whom I love. So that is her plan. She finds him in the stables. The two of them have a spat because Oscar's like, I know, internally, he's like, I know that I need to be the villain in her story for her to live the life that she should. So he says some not nice things and is internally crying about it. So she heads off, runs away, runs into the Opal of the Ocean, who was, what's the word that I'm looking for? Entertaining, the party. Turns out, it's the mercenary in disguise. It is the mercenary in disguise, though. And she grabs Guinevere, and I think they get the chest too, and heads off to go bring her to the client that they have. Now, this is when the plot gets interesting from like a story standpoint. The chest can only be unlocked with blood willingly given from Guinevere, because the chest is tied to her. Because the items inside are magical things from the pariah, the Pernanan, Paru? Yeah. The Paru. Never mind. He stole them from a mage. The Paru are like incredibly powerful magical items. So, this mage has wanted them back this entire time because Guinevere's father stole them so that he could, live a life. He was a groundskeeper for the mage. Things didn't go well, obviously. So, we end up with her on a ship. Oscar is desperately trying to find her with the help of Weasel's people, like guard, essentially. The Lord had also been kidnapped because our mage was like, I know it's going to be really difficult to get you to unseal this, so I'm just going to make sure that I have somebody whom you are betrothed to. You might not like him, but you are betrothed to him. To essentially force you to open it. Doesn't really work. Because frankly, Guinevere doesn't really care about this dude. Thing is, Oscar rolls up. He gets really, really hurt after beating the crap out of the other mercenaries and people on the upper portion of the ship. And Guinevere's not like, fine, I'll open it, as long as you can save him. And this warlock guy, totally to be trusted, says, yeah, I'll do that. You just need to open it. There's this wand of healing in there. You just need to open up the chest for me. So she does so. This guy goes, haha, psych, I'm just gonna kill you both. And then this is when Guinevere properly unleashes her sister. The two of them cause a giant fire. Everybody makes it out alive except for our sleazy mage man. Ooh, I love the way that turned out. And obviously, they've said, you know what, we're... Yep. Sorry, I'm running through all of these. She uses the scepter to heal Oscar. He does look very close to dying, well, in total honesty. They get on a small boat to get away from the burning ship. The Lord is very condescending towards Oscar because Oscar is a lowly man. Guinevere just shoves him off the boat. Two of them admit that they love each other, apologize for past mistakes, tell her parents to go ahead and ride off, and head off towards the land that her mother was in, or that his mother's land. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The character writing this is so good. I deeply enjoy how the characters interact with each other and the slow, begrudging, movement towards, falling for each other on both ends. Neither one of them wants to fall in love with the other person for, a multitude of reasons. So it's very interesting to see them still fall for each other. The spice is also very, very well written. So, if you do like spice, I would recommend. We have that nice mystery throughout. We don't know what's in the pear chest until a couple of chapters before the end. It's very satisfying to see Guinevere go from this very like timid and manners-minded girl to like a wildfire spirit, essentially. She's a lot more bold. She cares a lot less about decorum, and cares a lot more about what she wants as a person, which is really, really nice to see. I have to clean my brushes now. So overall, it's a very good book. I think I gave it 4 stars though. It wasn't like a 5-star book. I do wish it was a little bit longer. I wish that there were just like a few like world building things that were a little bit more fleshed out essentially, but overall very, very good. I would also like to mention that Tusk Love, while it does take place in the same universe that a lot of Critical Role stuff does, it does not use the same terminology that D&D does. It uses the terminology that Daggerheart does. This is particularly true with, there is a feline assassin, so instead of being called a tabaxi, it is a Katrin? Katrin? I can't remember it off the top of my head. I have Daggerheart somewhere in my house, but I cannot remember what it was called. And one of the other mercenaries is a elf, half orc type situation. So yeah, but it's just interesting to see them putting the story in the world of Daggerheart. So that was just a fun little thing that myself, as somebody who's been following Critical Role and Daggerheart, seeing that in this book is very interesting, especially because Daggerheart's not been out for very long, a little bit longer than this book, but this book had to have been in the works for quite a bit to get it to where it is now. But yeah, it was a deeply enjoyable book. I would also like to mention that if you get the hardcover copy, which I think there is only hardcover copies at the moment, this is what the inside of the sleeve looks like. I am trying to get to the point of where I feel confident enough to try and reverse it on my book, because I like the funny little jester jinxes. It's jinxes. Anyways, I like the fun little extra cover that you have, but it's a very pretty book. I feel like it's very well paced. Like I said, this is a very like simplistic, to the point type of like fantasy smut book. There is slightly more intrigue and plot than I've seen in other books similar to this, but it's still like, I feel like Tusk Love makes it very obvious what this book is, to be totally frank. So I feel like most people would not accidentally pick this up. But yeah, the author for this is also the same one who wrote Hurricane Wars, which I have on a list somewhere, because at some point I'm gonna do a video essay on published fan fiction. At some point I'm gonna get there. It's gonna happen. I swear to God it's gonna happen. Don't know when, don't know at what point in my life I'm gonna do it, but I want to. So I did really like her writing style, so I'm very excited to at some point read Hurricane Wars, for the very least for the writing style. We'll see if I actually like it, but that's the plan. But yeah, that is it for Tusk Love. I would say that it is a 4-star book. Very cute, very sweet, very light read. I think this book took me like a week to read, give or take, more or less. So yeah, deeply enjoyable. Take a peek at the eye makeup for it, obviously based off of the front of the book with the reds and greens and general fall colors that are there. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Toodles!